Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. We're so grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We want to say a big thank you to First Church in St. Joe, Michigan for sponsoring our lunch today. So thank you, St. Joe. Yay! I'm going to open us in a word of prayer. Father God, you are so good. You are a good Father who cares for each of us so deeply and cares for each of the children around the world that we have the honor and privilege of walking alongside. Father, would you bless this time? Would you bless this food? Would you inspire our hearts and our minds for your kingdom and for your work? It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We are going to give you guys a sneak peek of our presentation that we're doing at General Assembly, a video presentation. So this is never before seen footage. So hold on to your hats. Enjoy. Hi, welcome to Children of Promise, where we're making wholeness possible for children in 30 countries and counting around the world. It is a joy for us to partner with the Church of God globally as an outreach ministry of their local congregations. But maybe you already knew that. Many of you have sponsored children, helping kids run towards their own dreams. Thank you. While we're all here together, there's a few other things that we want you to know about Children of Promise.
Children of Promise is a leadership development pipeline.
Para mí, todo se remonta al núcleo número 4. El apadrinamiento de niños de promesa se preocupa por todo el niño, a través de la nutrición, de la educación, de la atención médica y del discipulado.
প্রমিস একটা সম্পূর্ণ প্রোগ্রাম যেটা মানব পাচার বন্ধ করতে সাহায্য করে। যখন আপনি একটা বাচ্চার পরিবারের থেকে সে বাচ্চাকে সাহায্য করছেন, তখন সেই বাচ্চার সাথে সাথে সেই পরিবারও অনেক সাহায্য পায়। সেই দরিদ্রতা থেকে তারা তাদের যে ভার বাচ্চাটিকে বড় করবার, সেটা থেকে তারা মুক্ত হয় এবং তার বাচ্চাটিকে সুন্দরভাবে বড় করবার সুযোগ পায়। এবং এর মধ্যে দিয়ে তাদের যে চিন্তা থাকে যে বাচ্চাকে বিক্রি করে দিতে হবে, সেই চিন্তা থেকে তারা সরে আসে এবং মানব পাচারে হবে।
When tragedy does strike, victims of trafficking are always surrounded in loving community of their local directors and local volunteers who willingly give themselves to offer aftercare.
Hola, soy Ronnie desde Misiones, Argentina. Nos encanta formar parte de Niños de Promesa. A través de este programa, muchas familias se están acercando a la iglesia al ver el obrar de Dios en la vida de sus hijos.
Yep, it's all a part of our locally shaped and globally supported approach. We trust our national directors who know the language and the culture and the context of their communities to guide and direct the programs the way they see fit. And then we come alongside and support them in that.
Well, I love travel. For me, missions is discipleship. We love traveling around the world with American leaders and training them before, during, and after the trip. After all, wholeness is about all of us growing together, both on the trip and on the way home.
I love visiting kids with sponsors. Visiting the children challenges you in a way that doesn't happen at home. And since we visit every child every 3 years, there are plenty of opportunities to travel with us.
Sí, amamos a las iglesias que nos apoyan. Y es que toma todo el cuerpo de Cristo hacer posible completar esto para nuestros hermanos y hermanas alrededor del mundo. Juntos estamos haciendo la diferencia en pequeños pueblos y aldeas en 30 países.
What about giving back to our church partners? So much has been given by so many, and we want to help activate the North American Church on mission. So much so that we have developed a free missional training and coaching system for our church partners.
Stories like Jonathan are why I've worked here. Jonathan, a street child in Ecuador, had the benefits of Children of Promise, had schooling, and now he has a patent with the government of Ecuador.
And what about Tin in Myanmar? She is dreaming of becoming a lawyer who can work for justice in a country that is desperately out of balance.
Don't forget Jacob in Tanzania. His sponsorship journey led to a PhD and a job as a tenured professor.
Inde mwasonse timayikonda ntchito ya Children of Promise chifukwa cha nkhani ngati zimenezi ana ochepekedwa nawonso kupatsidwa njira kuti ayime nawo pa mzere wa mpikisano wawo.
So if you didn't know, now you do. We are rethinking sponsorship. Next year, we turn 30 years old, and we are going to celebrate in a big, world-changing way. So join the journey and choose your own adventure.
Hopefully you saw a few familiar faces there, some of us here talking to you now, but also some of our directors from around the world who are really at the front lines of this ministry, doing amazing work, taking care of kids. We just want to say thank you real quick as we get started here for coming, for having lunch with us, and for participating in Children of Promise, not just as sponsors and donors, but as a part of the larger network, the larger family of Children of Promise. That's how we like to try to see Children of Promise. Today we're just going to try to outline a few of our goals, a few of our visions for the future of Children of Promise, as well as to celebrate where we've been. Next year is our 30th birthday as an organization. So we're going to have a whole year of celebrating. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. But we want to celebrate where we've been, where we are now, and where we're headed into the future. So we're going to kind of walk through that with you all today and give you a glimpse into what we hope to see happen, especially next year, but then in the years beyond that as well.
In thinking about our 30 years of ministry, all of this is building on a long, deep legacy of people who were passionate about the world and passionate about kids. So Children of Promise started in 1992. The concept was born on March 5th as a dream between Mac and Jean Johnson, and in partnership with women of the Church of God and the mission board at that time. They dreamt of being able to help the children and raise up leaders. And so it's just a joy to be able to be a part of that ministry today. They served for many years. It started in 6 countries and grew to 14 by the time that they finished their ministry. And then Paul and Brenda Maxfield came and served as executive directors, and the program grew to 30 countries. And now Mike and I have been executive directors for almost 2 years now, and trusting and anticipating that God is going to continue to grow and deepen the impact of Children of Promise around the world. My phone went to sleep with all my notes. Let's see. Over the 30 years, Children of Promise has had an impact on over 13,000 children's lives. And if you think of just those children who are sponsored, that doesn't even count the families and the communities and the churches that have also been impacted by the ministry. And so the ministry is vast, the impact is deep, and it is such a joy to be able to be a part of it. Also, as a part of our legacy, we want to celebrate those who are still working with us as they transition out into their next chapters of life. Linda Mason has served with Children of Promise, but she's going to be retiring on June 30th, so she just has a couple more days with us until she retires. So we have a special video message from her to share with you today.
Hi, I'm Linda Mason, and I've had the privilege the last 14 years of working at Children of Promise, and I say work, but it's joy. And I wouldn't have chosen to be anywhere else. I have loved meeting every single person in our ministry, whether it's the children or the directors or the team members overseas, speaking in your churches or taking your phone calls. I've loved every minute of it, and I'm going to miss Children of Promise when I retire in just another week or two. But just know that this ministry is far above so many ministries in the way that it is operated and is accountable, your funds really go for the purpose that you give them. You know, I've been in 19 countries with Children of Promise, and the images that come to my mind are the joys when children find out they have a new sponsor. And you know, it's like the whole place erupts in clapping and dancing, and they're just so excited. And then on a contrast to that, I've been in some places where there's been drought or flooding or any number of disasters, and we've taken in some relief foods for the families. And I remember one place in Uganda, a little boy from the neighborhood who was not in our program. The corn had kind of fallen out of the corner of the bag as we brought it in, and we were dishing out items for the kids to take home. And this little boy is seated on the ground, and he's picking up each kernel of corn. My worldview completely changed as I came into the ministry of Children of Promise. Whether I was on the board for 8.5 years before joining the staff, my life has been turned upside down, and I will always advocate for our children around the world. And we are the Church of God around the world. And if we don't reach out and take care of these children, what will the future bring for them and their families? What will happen when we're not in those countries, or if we weren't in those countries, and the church doesn't thrive and grow? We have literally seen many places around the globe where the church is enriched and built up because these children grew up with an understanding of the wholeness that they've been able to achieve in their lives and their earning ability. They just gave back to their communities. And really, isn't that what we are all about in the church, is to helping our brothers and sisters, but in a partnering kind of way. We gain more, much more from them than we ever can give them. But it's been a pleasure to be with Children of Promise all these years. I'm going to be sticking around Anderson because that's my home. And so I'll be dropping in once in a while to see our friends busy working in the offices and just cheer them on. And thank you all so much. Everyone involved in this ministry, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the contributions that you've made in the way that you've loved the children. I've read those letters. They're wonderful, and there's a relationship there. So God bless you as you carry on in your ministries.
We are so grateful for Linda's 14 years of ministry with Children of Promise. She's been such a gift to us, and we've been so grateful for how she's supported and encouraged Mike and I as we've transitioned into this role. I want to give Kirk a few minutes also to share. He's also coming to the end of his time with Children of Promise, and he has been such a gift, and we want to be able to let him share from his heart also.
I'm not going to share about the core 4 things that we do that change lives. I'm not going to talk about children who have grown up and broken the cycle of poverty, or the future leaders of the church, or I'm not even going to talk about children who have been saved from human trafficking. You're going to hear about that and more. That story goes on. I'm going to share more from just how Children of Promise has affected me in a personal way. And the best way I can think of doing that is just to share a story or two. The last trip that I've been on overseas, or not overseas, out of the country for Children of Promise, was to the Dominican Republic. And I remember standing in a church, and there were 3 girls looking at me, very young girls looking at me and pointing at me and whispering to each other. And finally, they found the courage to come up and talk to me. And they asked me a question. They said, "Are you 100 years old?" I did not receive that as the word of the Lord. But the clock keeps ticking. And I will say, because it's true, that I believe that Children of Promise has better than a good staff. I think the leadership is awesome. It's the best staff of people I've ever worked at with in my life. And I think the future is just tremendous for Children of Promise. All of you who are sitting here today would expect me to say that because it's the polite thing to say. But I want you to know it's sincere and it's true. When I think of the trips, there's so many stories I could tell. I will tell simply one. Aaron Varner, you were on the trip with me for this particular one. Bangladesh. You remember going to Bangladesh. We drove down a road, then a narrow road, and then a narrow road, and then we walked for maybe a third of a mile to go to a village in Bangladesh. As we were going to that village, the leader of the Children of Promise program told us that this was a group of people who were the untouchables in Bangladesh. I asked him more about that, and he said that not everyone in Bangladesh accepts that, but he thought 75 to 80% of the people in Bangladesh believe this, that if you are born an untouchable, you are worthless. Your life does not, I'm not going to get choked up, not me. But your life is worthless. You'll spend a worthless life, you'll live a worthless life, and you'll die a worthless life. Aaron, you were there to walk into a village like that, and every single person there knows every single day of their life that they're worthless. Aaron played with children because you played with children wherever you went. We, in every way we could, with every word, with every nonverbal communication, and every action that we took, we wanted to know there was worth. That there was a God who believed they had worth. There were God's people who believed they had worth. And they knew that was true. Because the people of God made the difference. You know, I practiced this 27 times and I didn't get all choked up even one time because the mirror in my motel room can handle this really well. As I left that village, I thought to myself several things. One of the things I thought is that is the nature of the people of God to show the love of God. And then I thought of my own church. My church is in a declining neighborhood, a lot of drugs. There are some rough things happening in our neighborhood. There are children who are being raised in very rough homes. Not a single child that you sponsor had a choice about where they were going to be born. Neither did the children in our neighborhood. Children of Promise helped me to see something that I already saw and helped me to learn something that I already knew. The worth. It's better when we record it because you can edit all this stuff out. But it has reminded me that there are people in my culture and in my neighborhoods and in my town that irritate me. And they're loved by God. And they are problems to me. And they are loved by God. And those of you who sponsor children, I believe that many of you have learned the same thing, that in helping children that you will never meet, you begin to look in your own community and you see a difference that it makes. Isn't that true? And then I thought about all the sponsors that I've met. I have traveled the nation. I've met in some of your homes. I've eaten pie in some of your homes. And I sit and listen to your stories. And one of the things that is simply true is time and time again, people in this room have told me how blessed you are, that you could help another one. I think I am most honored above all people. I think you're most honored too, and you. Children of Promise is going to do a great thing. It's a three-way partnership. Take away any of this, and it disappears. Take away our 1,000 volunteers around the world, and there is no Children of Promise. Take away the structure, the encouragement, the support, and the training of the office, and the ones who tell the story. There is no Children of Promise. Take away you, and there is no Children of Promise. I know you are changing the world, and I want to thank you so much. Some of you have thanked me, and I think you have it backwards. I am so blessed, and I want to say thank you very much.
This role as executive directors in August of 2019, we went through a process of working with a consultant to just step back and see where Children of Promise had been, what are our values, where do we see things moving in the future. And the thing that stuck with me that was so incredibly powerful is that the vision of Children of Promise in 1992 is the same vision of Children of Promise now. The way that we look is different, and the way that we're operating is a little bit different. But the ministry, the mission, the values, the importance of the local volunteers, the focus on raising up children to be leaders in their communities, all of that is the same. So you might notice that Children of Promise looks a little bit different now, but we want you to know that it just has some new vocabulary. It has a new look, but the ministry is the same. And we are so grateful for the Johnsons and for the Maxfields for building such a strong foundation of ministry that can carry it into the future. You might notice that we use the word wholeness a lot. So through this process with the consultant, we went through a ton of words. What best describes what it is that Children of Promise does? And the word that we settled on was wholeness. Wholeness in Scripture comes from the same word as the word shalom. So if you think about shalom being an all-encompassing, holistic peace, a fullness, a completeness, that's what we're striving for these children. That's what God desires for each of us. It's what God desires for each of the children and communities where all around the world. And so that is what Children of Promise is striving to do, is to make wholeness possible for kids around the world. We are doing that through the core four, what we call the core four. And these are the same four things that the Johnsons and the Maxfields were focusing on. Those four things are nutrition, education, medical care, and discipleship. If we can remove those barriers from our children's lives, it helps them to continue to pursue a life of wholeness. When they aren't having to think about what am I going to eat, or how am I going to pay my school fees, or can my family afford to take me to the doctor when I'm sick, it just opens up your mind to be able to dream about what God has for you in the future and to pursue those dreams. So, yes, making wholeness possible, our core four. Another phrase that you're going to see a lot is locally shaped and globally supported. The reason for that is Kirk alluded to it. I think some of us others have alluded to it also. We couldn't do Children of Promise without our directors and our volunteers around the world. The majority of our directors are not paid. It's a volunteer ministry opportunity for them as an outreach of their local community, local church. So those directors, Children of Promise couldn't function without them, and we're so grateful. You got to see several of them in that first video.
You all know that this last year has been odd, to say the least. Churches haven't operated the same, ministries haven't operated the same, travel has been a no-go for most of us in a lot of ways, and so we've had to kind of think through how do we continue to function as an organization in this weird year when our commitment is to visit every kid at least once every 3 years, when our commitment is to be engaged in their lives and to be doing leadership development and mutual encouragement with those directors around the world, and we can't travel to see them, what does that look like? And so part of this last year has been a chance for Heather and I to focus our attention a lot on our own staff here in the U.S. and cultivating that, as well as to think big, to dream big about what the future might look like for Children of Promise. We've maintained contact with the directors and kids as best we can with Zoom and email and phone calls. But we've spent a lot of our time thinking about how can we also remove barriers for the church here in the United States to be a part of Children of Promise in a bigger way. One of the things that we developed is what we're calling the GAP Fund. It's kind of a new take on a fund that already existed in Children of Promise, which was the Unsponsored Children's Fund. And basically that was when kids lose their sponsors, Children of Promise continues to make sure that those kids are cared for out of our budget. And we don't want them to just stop being sponsored because their sponsor had to stop for whatever personal reason they may have had. And as we looked more into that concern, we also found that there were a lot of people in the church who wanted to participate but had trouble contributing the $32 every month or making that commitment themselves, but they still wanted to be a part of sponsorship. And so we came up with the idea for the GAP Fund, where we would allow people to just give whatever amount they want to give towards sponsorship. And now we've identified 3 different gaps that we'll use the GAP Fund money for. Of course, in that same gap in the middle is important. For those children who have lost their sponsors, we'll continue to take care of them with the GAP Fund. But we've also found that we've got a long list of children who have been waiting for sponsorship. And until we get sponsors who can commit to $32 a month, they're just continuing to wait. But what if there was a way for people giving one-time donations or recurring donations of any amount to still contribute to sponsorship? So we've identified the pre-sponsorship gap for those kids who have been waiting. You can give any amount, and we have a selected number. As of July, it's now up to 175 kids. Because of the GAP Fund, will get to start their sponsorship journey now instead of waiting for their ongoing sponsor. And we'll continue to be raising money for the GAP Fund. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in some of our fundraising ideas later. And then we've got a third gap as well. After kids finish secondary school, a lot of them have opportunities to go on to college or vocational school or to do something to progress into their professional adult lives. And we want to be able to equip and promote that by giving them scholarships to pursue those dreams. And so we're in the process still of building what that looks like exactly with some applications and talking to directors so that when kids have those opportunities, we can propel them into the future to pursue those dreams utilizing that GAP Fund. So this is something that we've just expanded so that anybody who wants to give financially to participate in sponsorship doesn't have to actually just commit to the $32 a month. You can give whatever you want at any time, repeatedly or one time. It can be 50-cent piece or it can be $1 million, whatever you want to give. And we're working on is, we've had a database that's homegrown and we're starting to outgrow it a little bit. And so we've been working with a new company called Reach. There's going to be more about that coming in the future, but very, very soon, sponsors will have access utilizing Reach to their own sponsorship portfolio. They can look at their kids, they can give online, they can manipulate their own financial information, their own mailing information, and they'll have their own donor portal to be able to interact with all their own details that way. So we're really excited about that. We're also blessed with some great fundraising capability utilizing the Reach platform. So we've got some new things that have been building and bubbling to the surface over this last year, but we are chomping at the bit to get traveling again. Just next week, we'll be headed to Costa Rica and on to Nicaragua, and we've got a whole list of places that we're hoping to get to in this next year. But we're excited about some of these new developments that will enable more and more and more people to be involved with this phenomenal ministry. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. He's going to talk about some of our dreams for the future.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? You still awake? Good. I see the turkey's kicking in, I feel like, on a few of you. But hey, we're so glad you're here. We are so thrilled we could put this together and that you would take the time out of your afternoon to join us. We're just really feeling like God is calling us into some new places where we want to honor the past, as Heather mentioned, but go to new places to reach more children and make a bigger difference in the global church. And real quick story on the Gap Fund that I was thinking of looking at the archers here. First time we ever talked about the Gap Fund down at their church down south, I preached, talked about the Gap Fund, showed the video for the first time, and afterwards a woman came up to my wife and I and said, I'd like to give something. And I said, okay, well, you can sponsor a child. And she said, well, I can't really afford that. And she pulled out a 10 and a 5 out of her pocket. And I said, oh, well, thank you. I mean, and so in the past, that would have been kind of a challenging spot for us. So, well, maybe sponsor later, or, but I was able to say to her, well, are you interested in the Gap Fund? And she said, actually, I was sitting in my pew thinking, if there's only another way, and then you showed that video of the Gap Fund. And she doesn't, I think maybe she does know this now, but she was the first ever gift to the Gap Fund of that $15. And Marcus came up to me after the service and said, Kyle, you don't realize that was a widow's mite story. This woman is one of the people in our congregation who has the least of these, and was able to make that contribution because there was a place for her. And so that's our vision for the Gap Fund, that it will continue to be that for people all over the world who want to make a contribution, but sponsorship doesn't work for them right now. So yeah, we're dreaming about the future. If you don't know me, my name's Kyle, and my wife Jessica, we're both on staff. Just as of last August, we've been in church ministry our whole career up to this point, and worked a lot in Africa with these two. And when we had the chance to come jump over to Anderson and work with them, we jumped at it, because not only was it an opportunity to work with friends, but to work with people we trust and believe in their vision. And so we're having a lot of fun right now. Even though it's not been so fun not being able to travel, it's given us the margin to think and to dream together. And that's what I want to share with you a little bit about today. A couple of things. If you've been following us on social media, we've been teasing quite a bit about the new ideas we're working on. So I want to jump through these quickly. We've developed a missional training because we want to give back to the church partners that we work with. As Kirk mentioned, this is not possible without your churches. It just isn't. We are in this together, and we want to give back through what we're calling missional training. I've had the opportunity to do this with a few churches in the Midwest so far, and it's been really productive. Basically, the vision for this is to help churches connect the Imago Dei already in their church to the Missio Dei around the world. The image of God in your congregation to the mission of God already happening all over the world. And Children of Promise may be one of those avenues, but that's not the entire breadth of this training. It's local and global. And the goal is through a 2-part training to help your church create a 3 to 5 year filter for what your mission calling is, and to put it down on paper. And I'm there just as a facilitator. It's really about what God is doing through the Holy Spirit in your people. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to talk to you about that. It's just one way we want to give back. A new way we want to give back, and this is real new, I mean, it just got done a couple weeks ago, is a new VBS supplement, or supplement for children's ministry. I was a children's pastor for the first chunk of my career, and I can't escape it. It follows me everywhere, as you can see. And I really believe if we can teach the next generation what holistic and healthy missions looks like, we could have a different future down the road. And so that's the vision of this 5-part video series. Basically what we do is this little guy here, I'm going to show you a clip in just 2 seconds. Emery, he takes the kids of your church to 5 locations around the Children of Promise world, tells a story, and covers the core 4, which is what Heather was mentioning earlier, that how we support our children, and wholeness. So let me show you a quick clip of that, and I'll explain it a little bit better after I...
Hi friends, I'm Emery, and welcome to the Children of Promise team. It's time to board our plane, so come on! Today we're traveling across the world to learn from one of our Children of Promise friends. While our friends may have challenges in their lives, there's always something beautiful as well. Let's go! Hola y bienvenido a Colombia! Welcome to Colombia! We are back in South America for our last incredible trip. Wow, what a crazy few trips we have had together.
So there's a little sneak peek for you. And if you're wondering, I don't know who Emery is, so don't ask. Anyways, there's no segue from that. But our goal is, and our hope is that the children of your church can use this free training for you. This is a free for any churches that are working with us, donation if you'd like, to encourage your children to connect to mission, to learn a little bit about how the Core 4, and to appreciate some of the things. One of the episodes talks about education and tells a story of a boy who could not get an education, but because of sponsorship was able to. And one of the questions they ask the kids is, what would it be like if you couldn't go to school? And of course, they would probably cheer at your church. But then the question that follows up is, there are many kids around the world who would give anything to attend school for one day like you do. And so there's some questions in there, and we have resources and activity sheets that we were so lucky to have an intern on staff this year who did an amazing job from Huntington University. You saw her in the video earlier, Sandra, who wrote all this curriculum, and it's ready for your churches to use to supplement for your missions emphasis month or for your VBS. So if you have questions about that, ask me afterwards. I'd love to tell you more about it because we're excited about it. And now, some of you have been probably waiting for this one because we've been teasing that we have a new kind of mission trip. Now, we're going to continue to travel all over the world with churches like yourselves and people from your churches, like we always have. That's not going away. And if you're wondering what churches or what countries we need to catch back up on because of COVID, basically it's all of them. I asked Mike the other day, I said, what's our list looking like these days? He said, just all of them. It's just all of them. So there's going to be tons of travel opportunities, hopefully even early in 2022. But one new thing that we're working on that we feel like God is calling us into is, and it starts at the heartbeat of what Kirk mentioned, those 1,000 volunteers. We have people that you will never know, some of you do, and you're lucky to know them, who are heroes of the faith, who are just regular people in their churches, Sunday school teachers, pastors, people that are making a difference in our program and empowering the next generation, changing their communities through this program. And we want to appreciate them better. We want to pour into them better. We want to empower them better. So this is a big idea I'm about to share, but I want you to remember that's the heartbeat of this idea, is to love them and encourage them on a rotating basis. So this idea is called GLF, Global Learning Forums. And the goal of this is that every year we would have a rotating list of hub cities in our 4 major areas of the world. And here's kind of an image of where our programs are currently. And each year, say Africa, we would have a GLF meeting where a small group of North Americans would travel with us for a 3 to 4 day conference. Now, how's this different than everything else many of you have traveled on? We really want to endeavor to make this an equitable table conference. What I mean by that is that everyone will have a say at the table. If I lead worship for one of the mornings, we'll have a Rwandan lead worship for the afternoon. If I tell a story or do a training on children's ministry, we'd have someone share a story from their perspective from Uganda or Malawi. We want to make sure it's an equitable table so that when people from your churches come with us, they're not just coming as teachers and trainers, they're coming also as learners. And here's where it gets really fun. After 3 or 4 days of that, and this is where the model kind of blows open for us, our 4th day would be a crash course retraining with people of your church on how we do child interviews. And then you would have the option to fly home with one of the leaders from the GLF to do child interviews in their country. So if you're following me, it's a kind of a hybrid missions trip. First 3 to 4 days is a kind of a learning leadership conference, storytelling conference, and then you get to fly home into Malawi or Rwanda or fill in the gap for whichever hub of the world you're interested in and do child interviews with or without us as a team after being trained, which will decentralize our trip leadership that we've done over all these years. So we really believe that GLF is going to do a lot of things to help us organizationally. We really believe it's going to empower the global church to feel like they're a part of this and not someone we just show up every once in a while. They're truly a part of what we're doing because we're meeting together. And the last chunk of this that we're really excited about is what I call reverse engineering Acts 1:8. So everyone in this room, I'm sure, is familiar with this idea of Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. But having worked with a lot of churches around the country, I know that sometimes that last chunk feels kind of random. You may end up somewhere in the world because somebody's uncle went there on a missions trip in 1975, or you had a friend who was a friend of a friend who went to Uganda once, or whatever. But what we want to do is, and we really believe that healthy partnerships stem from healthy relationships. And we want to help people in your churches meet the global church because we feel like we're uniquely positioned to do that, having literal grassroots hubs all over the world. And so, in doing so, we want to start with the GLF. So say you come to a GLF in Tanzania and you meet a national leader and connect with them. Maybe even fly home with them to their country to do child interviews. We want to help that continue to be an ongoing partnership in that region. Or maybe friends from your church could come back the following year and do a regular Children of Promise interview trip. Maybe you come back for the GLF when it rotates back around to that continent. And we're hoping that we can act now as a framework for healthier partnerships for churches in the North American region to meet the global church and build good and long-lasting relationships. And the last thing I'll say about that before I get out of your way for a minute is I am very passionate that missions is discipleship. Missions should not be a one-off week that somebody pats themselves on the back and says, I did it. We want to help your churches build missions into your discipleship strategy. And what I mean by that is we are endeavoring once again to build a training that anyone who travels with us in the next few years will be trained ahead of the trip, discipled while they're on the trip, and then empowered to tell stories when they go home. And that last piece is what we're calling our Advocates program. We want to help create just oodles and oodles of advocates around the country who can tell the story for us, advocate for us if we're not there, and represent us even in their local communities and in their churches. And we want to do that through travel. And you're going to hear more about the Advocates program in a minute, but we are excited about GLF. We believe that it's going to unify the global church and empower some of those leaders who've been doing amazing ministry with the poorest of the poor for many, many years, and sometimes they go unnoticed by us here in North America just because of the distance. And we're excited to see what God's going to do with this big idea. We're hoping that our first GLF, which is to be announced, will be in 2022 as a part of our 30th birthday year. So keep eyes out for that. And if you want to talk about this at all, do not fret. You can find me at the booth. We'll talk more. So let's talk birthday now. We feel like our 30th birthday year is a unique opportunity for us to get the North American church together, to celebrate together, to do some fun together, and to raise a lot of money for good together. And I'm looking at many of you in this room because I know your churches, and I am so thankful for so many of you who've made a huge difference. I tell people all the time when they ask me what it was like to come into this role, I say I am like one of the most blessed young development officers like ever, because the network of Children of Promise is so vast and so amazing. And as Heather said, it goes so deep. And there's so many encouraging and amazing people supporting us. So we're thankful for you. And we're hoping that our 30th birthday year will bring even more churches in to do some good with us. So what's the 30th birthday year going to look like? Well, we're going to party. And I mean that literally. We are hoping to have 4 regional birthday parties around the country next year. We're talking to some churches now on that, but we're hoping to have one, Pacific Northwest, Southwest, maybe Anderson, I don't know, we'll see. But all over the country. And we're going to, first and foremost, party. We're going to eat cake. We're going to celebrate together. We're going to tell stories of the first 30 years and just thank God for what God has done to make a difference in so many children, like in the places Kirk talked about, who would have gone unseen. And we're so thankful for so many of you in this room. But second, we want to have some fun with it. So we're calling this Choose Your Own Adventure, and we want to do some hikes. And I mean that literally. So we're looking for some places in the country with some fun hikes, and we're encouraging people to join us on a hike at the birthday party and to encourage your churches to support you in either steps, altitude, miles, whatever you feel called to. Now, what if you can't come to a birthday party? It's totally fine. We're going to make it, through our new fundraising software, you'll be able to do a hike anywhere you are, really. If you want to hike in your own neighborhood, do the local park in town, whatever you want to do, we want you to hike, and you have the whole year to do it. So Just put it on the calendar and figure it out. So that's going to be one aspect of the fundraising. And the final part of the birthday party will be the advocacy program I just talked about. We'll have a training available at each of the 4 birthday parties for people who want to get jump-started into that, to be a part of advocating for us around the country, at your local dinner groups you're part of, whatever else, at your Sunday school classes. And that'll be a part of the birthday parties as well. So you can attend with us, hear some stories, get on a party hike with us, or become an advocate there at the event. And we're hoping that this will be a fun way for people to interact with us, to raise funds towards our big goal, which Mike's going to talk about in about a second. And just have some fun together, to do an adventure. And your church and the people in your church can choose the adventure that works best for them at their age and stage of life. If they have children, there'll be something literally for everybody. So we're really excited about this idea.
I recognize we're getting a little bit short on our time, so we'll try to keep it quick, but this is a big dream, and we've got some big goals ahead. We're dreaming about investing in these leaders around the world. You know, Children of Promise has always had, rightfully so, a strong focus on the children, but we wouldn't be able to meet the needs of the children without that massive list of volunteers, those thousands of volunteers around the world, and we want to invest more into them, and that costs money. We want to do this GLF so that we can really invest in them. And this past couple of months, as we've interacted with some of you, with different pastors, we've been hearing a lot about what their journey has looked like through this pandemic in this last year. Things seem to be looking a little bit better here in the United States. Massive numbers of people have been vaccinated at this point. We're all in this room not wearing masks. The same is not true around the world. A lot of our partners around the world are still really, really, really struggling through COVID-19 resurgences, lack of vaccinations, and the list goes on. And one of the things that we've learned is that different churches here in the U.S. have fared differently. Some churches have really struggled. Their people are out of work. Their people have been sick. They've lost members in their congregations, and we want to remember those difficulties and pray for those people as well. Some people have kind of been in the middle of the road. Their giving has been pretty significant. They've been able to still pay their bills, but the church isn't growing. They're still trying to figure out how to operate virtually or in a hybrid way. But we've also heard from some whose bills have been down because they're not meeting, and giving has still been generous, and they're actually in a position to do something big with even a little bit of surplus. We want to call on those of you who are really doing well through COVID-19 to consider utilizing some of those resources to what we're saying, to pray it forward. Where the rest of the world is still really struggling, if you're from a church that's not, if you're from a church that's really actually been blessed through this season, would you consider contributing some of that so that we can invest more specifically in bigger and bigger ways in the global church, through global leadership forums, through the GAP Fund, and through the other ministries that we've been talking about this morning. We've got some big goals to try to raise $300,000 over our birthday year. What we would love is for some churches who are really doing well to even consider giving some matching funds that we can use to inspire and encourage other individuals to give as well. We've been blown away over this last year that we've done 2 campaigns through the pandemic, and I've seen incredible generosity from you, where we've been able to sponsor 175 kids now in the GAP Fund, where we've been able to allocate $20,000 of scholarship funds for the GAP 3 kids who are out of secondary school and moving into other opportunities, to continue to care for all those kids who've lost sponsors because their sponsors are struggling through this pandemic. God has still really blessed Children of Promise through all of you, and we want to continue to ask you to be generous. So that we can continue to grow this ministry and provide for these dreams that God has instilled into our hearts. We want to say thank you. We want to honor you. We want to recognize you that we have these big dreams and we've been able to do some of these things because of you, because of your generosity. And we're so grateful for the partnership that we have with all of you. And we want to ask you to keep partnering with us, to keep journeying with us. We've talked about the previous 30 years that's been an awesome adventure in ministry. This last 2 years with Heather and I and this pandemic has been a strange adventure. And now we're dreaming about the next 30 years of adventure that lie ahead. And we want to invite you to partner with us in that adventure, to choose your own adventure through our birthday year, but also to partner with us in the next 30 years of adventure, the next 30 years of dreams that lie ahead.
So along with the $300,000 goal for the year, all of next year, actually, and I'll show you here in a second, it's going to start this December, to be clear. We are also excited to make a goal for 300 new children sponsored traditionally. So the $32 a month. And that's because we still believe in sponsorship. And we want to be very clear about that. We just believe in both. The reason that I came to work at Children of Promise is, and I think I'm going to see some eyebrows raised here when I say this too, if you've traveled, is I didn't totally get Children of Promise as a missions pastor. And Kirk said, Kyle, go on a trip. And I did. And when I saw that the children don't just disappear, they're becoming the pastors, the Sunday school teachers. They're becoming the leaders, not just of the church, but the whole community, and making a difference. This is holistic missions, and it changed my mind. And that's why we want to work with a both-and approach, to sponsor children continually, but also through the Gap Fund and other ideas to empower our leaders around the world. So that's our two goals for the year, is one of the $300,000 and then the 300 new children sponsored. And we're going to kick things off this December. For a little recap, here's how we hope the year goes. Will it go like this? Probably not, because does anything go as planned anymore? No. But this is how we hope the year goes. We're going to kick off this December with our Gift Wholeness campaign that we did last Christmas, but it'll be the beginning of our birthday year. And we're hoping to raise a lot of our matching funds, as Mike just talked about, through this part of the year so we can use them to challenge new churches, new donors, new sponsors in 2022. And then the birthday parties will begin sometime early in the year, hopefully in the South. Anybody in the South, like in January maybe? Let's not go north then, please. But we'll start here, and then we'll go through the 4 birthday parties throughout the year with hikes at each. And of course, you can hike anytime. If your church has a missions emphasis month or a sermon series you're planning, like this would be a great time to challenge your church to do the local park or whatever you maybe you're already thinking of places in your head that you know you could do this locally. And then by next December at our big finale, kind of, our Christmas 2022, we're going to hopefully be celebrating these 2 big goals and then some. So we just want to say thank you for listening to this, and for so many of you for already getting us to the place where we can dream like this. We did not know what to expect through a COVID season. Moving my family to a new organization during a pandemic, who knows what that's like? But God has just continually shocked us with the generosity of the people of the Church of God, and we're so thankful for you. So I'm going to turn it over to the Webbs to wrap things up, and of course we'll be here for questions afterwards.
So we've been talking about this 1992 year. In 1992, the Johnsons planted a mustard seed, and it's been growing, and we see that there's still a lot of growth yet to occur, and we're just so excited. We're grateful for that heritage. We want to honor that heritage. We maintain contact with the Maxfields, especially. We were just with them last week. And we're so blessed that we get to carry on the legacy that has been established prior to this new era of people leading this charge. I also just want to quickly say, we've got our friends from Global Strategy in the room too, and a lot of the things that we're doing, they're doing differently, but also doing. And I want to advocate for them as well. We came from Global Strategy. We believe wholeheartedly in what they're doing. We're not in competition with Global Strategy. We are all on the same team. And whenever possible, we want to cross-pollinate and work together and meet the needs of the world together as best we can so that all can experience wholeness. So I just wanted to honor them too, that they're here and that we love them and cherish them. And if you're not supporting them, you should be supporting them also. So
I'm going to give away one.
Whoops.
Who do you want to send it to?
Siri, thank you.
Apparently, she wanted to be a part of this. We got lots of kids ready to be sponsored. So I just want to put a plug out there. All of the kids that we brought profiles for this week to get sponsored are the kids that have been pre-sponsored because of the GAP Fund. So the GAP Fund is just until we can find their long-term sponsor. So they're starting their sponsorship journey because of your generosity, but we still want an individual person, family, group to sponsor those kids. So sponsor a kid this week. We are so grateful that you've been here to share with us today. I hope that you can see how excited we are about being a part of this ministry and the future of this ministry. So we'll be here all week. So come and chat with us. We'd love to share more about things that are happening and directions that we're heading and how we'd like to move forward with you. Yes, make sure you follow us on all of our socials. So Kyle and Jessica can put together a mean video, and mean meaning like really good, and they can do it really quickly. So our YouTube channel is exploding like it's never exploded before. So make sure to follow our YouTube. You'll get all of the latest stuff, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So thank you for being here. It is